Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Academic Advisor Forum, Advising for Graduate School Pathways, Practical Tools for Undergraduate Advisors. My name is Ross Hawkins. I'm the Director of the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. And again, welcome everyone today to our first Advisor Forum for the spring 2026 semester. Our next Advisor Forum will be a seated Advisor Forum on Wednesday, February 25th, so Wednesday, February 25th, in PSU 313, and we will have an opportunity to learn about enrollment management updates. So Dr. Dawn Medley and Jeremy Dickerson from the Office of Enrollment Management will be at that session to share with us information. So please plan to join us for that event if it works with your schedule. As a reminder, please enter your name and your department in the chat feature if you wish to receive Master Advisor credit for the session. Uh, Also, as a reminder, today's advisor form will be recorded and posted on the Mo State Advising YouTube channel. So if you know of others who could benefit from the information being shared today, please let them know within the next 1 to 2 weeks. This advisor forum will be posted in the spring 2026 playlist on the Mo State Advising YouTube channel. Again, thank you all for joining us today. I will now turn it over to Dr. Carissa Holscher, Associate Dean in the Graduate College. Carissa.
Thank you, Ross. I see a lot of names that I recognize and a lot of names I don't. So, if you don't know me, like Ross said, I'm Carissa. I work in the Graduate College. And prior to that, I was a faculty member in communication, media, journalism, and film, where I served as our graduate program director for a few years. You might know that we've been partnering here in the Graduate College with the AATC for quite some time now to elevate the importance of graduate advising as well as undergraduate advising here on our campus. And so this is just a continuation and evolution of that partnership. And I'm thrilled to be here and to see so many people on the call. We've done a couple of these graduate specific advising forums over the last few years, and we focus really on policy, making sure you know all of our convoluted policies here on campus. And I have a little bit of that for you today, but more so, I just want to talk to you about how you talk to your students who are interested in potentially pursuing graduate school. And so, really, my goal today is to try to give you practical tips that you can use in your advising conversations. And so, I hope that this is meaningful to you, and I'm appreciative of the time here. Let's see, Ross, I saw you turned your camera back on. Is there anything else I need to do? Oh, you're just pinning me. Thank you. I really love that for me. All right. Because I can't do anything without an agenda, I do want to start by just sharing with you where I'm headed today. And so these are our session goals. My hope is that by the end of our conversation this afternoon, you will have tips and tools so that you can do these things. Confidently explain why graduate school might be a strong option for your students. Identify those students who might benefit from our accelerated pathways, understand policies for undergraduates taking graduate credit, avoiding common pitfalls related to this conversation, and then knowing when and where to refer your students. Like I said, I do want you to get as much out of this as possible, so please feel free to interrupt me with questions. You can unmute yourself, let me know what your questions are, or I'll do my best to keep an eye on chat or rely on Ross to interrupt me when that's necessary. Um, Before we dig in, I just want to say there's a couple of reasons that I'm really, really glad you're here today. I am going to operate under the assumption that the majority of you are primarily focusing on undergraduate advising. And I am really glad you're here because you are often the first person a student will talk to about what's next in their life. And I just want you to pause and reflect on the power that that represents because you have influence. Your conversations with your students influence whether they might even consider graduate school, when they start preparing for graduate school, how strategically they approach the decision, emphasis on strategic there, and whether they see us, Missouri State, as part of their long-term plan if they're thinking about staying with us for graduate education. When I was an undergraduate student, my major was English education, and my English advisor was Dr. Sue Park. I took a film and literature class with her, and we would read a novel and then watch the movie in a night class. And she would pull us out into the hallway one by one to talk about our essays that we wrote about the novel. It was an incredibly intimidating pedagogical approach because you never knew when you were going to get pulled into the hallway. But in one of my hallway conversations, Sue Park is the first person who ever in my life said to me, "Have you thought about graduate school?" And had it not been for that conversation, I would not be where I am today. And I am forever grateful that she was willing to have that conversation with me. So, what I want you to hear from me today is that conversations about grad school don't typically start in our office, they start with you. And you are incredibly influential. So thank you for that work. And I hope that you keep it up. And I hope that you learned something from me today. And if any of you know Dr. Sue Park from West Texas A&M University, tell her I said hi. All right, so I just want to make sure you all understand the graduate pathways that exist here at Missouri State. I think this is a little bit of common sense, at least for those in my office, but I don't ever want to assume that everybody is clear on that. So just so that you know, we have, of course, traditional pathways into four different graduate program types here at Missouri State. Students can start with a graduate certificate, go into a master's program, a specialist, or a doctorate. And I'm sure you all have been paying attention to the exciting conversation about us adding research doctorates, PhDs at the institution. Most of our doctorates up until this point have been professional doctorates, primarily in the health fields. So we're really excited about expanding our doctorate pathways. So we offer a lot of different programs in these areas. But I also want to make sure that if you're on the call today, you know that there are other pathways beyond just traditionally applying to and starting a program. And that includes our accelerated graduate programs and the ability for our undergraduate students to take graduate credit while they are finishing that undergraduate degree. These latter two options, they save our students time, they reduce their total cost. I'm going to talk about this in detail later on, but they really help strengthen academic momentum, which is a big deal in terms of degree completion. And in many cases, we have the evidence to know that students starting early improve their outcomes later on. And so I'm going to dig into these pathways a little bit more throughout the session today, but I want to make sure that you all are clear on exactly what that looks like, how a student can start here at Missouri State, and that that's going to likely look different from student to student. So I think the first sort of question that you all are likely to experience from your undergraduate students is the why graduate school question. And so I want to give you just some talking points that you can maybe stash away and have at the ready, because I think that there's an assumption that undergraduate advisors want to send everybody to graduate school, and I would love for you to do that. But I also want us to acknowledge that students have to figure out what's best for themselves, and that you are a really powerful guide in helping them figure out what's best for them. So first, I think that you need to be talking with your students with this assumption in mind. Graduate school is not automatic. It's not just the obvious next step. It's not the next step for students who aren't ready to grow up or who aren't ready to leave their party days from undergrad, right? It's a strategic choice. And I hope that you are willing to come alongside your students and be a partner in that strategic thinking. We know that students pursue graduate education for a whole lot of reasons. Graduate school helps students advance in their field, helps them meet credentials and licensure requirements. We have a lot of programs at the graduate level here at Missouri State where you must have that master's degree, for example, to be licensed in that field. We know that graduate education increases earning potential for our students. The most widely cited statistic is that master's degree earners in our country will earn 20% more over the course of their career than those who hold a bachelor's degree. We also see that students are using graduate school to specialize or pivot their career directions. And if we're being honest with ourselves, sometimes that happens literally at the very end of their bachelor's degree. They finish their 4 years and then realized, oh, maybe this major wasn't the right choice, but I'm not ready to restart. And they use graduate school to pivot. And that's perfectly okay. We also see that people are using graduate school to prepare themselves for leadership roles maybe later in their career. So as you see these options, I hope what you're realizing is that it's not the ideal solution for every single student to go immediately into a graduate program after their bachelor's degree, which is why I emphasize that this is a strategic choice and that your role is to help your students think with both aspiration, know that they can do this, but also with clarity, that they are doing this for the right reason. I often talk to students who find themselves in graduate school because they didn't know what else to do. And I really wish that those are the students that had the advising and the strategic thinking partner that we're thinking about today. So, how do you help your students frame graduate school as a strategic choice? I have a list of questions here that I think that you should encourage your students to ask. So number one, what are my what long-term professional identity am I building toward? What do I want to, how do I want to describe myself as a professional in a career? Does my intended field require or reward an advanced degree? Those are two very different things that might help students clarify whether graduate school is the right path for them. I really like this question, and I think it's interesting listening to students, undergraduate students, try to answer it. What problem would graduate education solve for me? If that problem is maybe just not having to go get a real job yet, then perhaps you can come alongside and help that student think a little bit more strategically. Is this a strategic investment or is it just a default next step? What I hope that you are getting across to your students is that graduate school should align with their career goals, but that's not all. Their personal and family goals matter as well. It might not be the right time for a person's family situation to pursue graduate education. I think it's important for students to think about readiness and their long-term planning. So when I say that your role is to help frame graduate school as a strategic choice, you're really helping your students answer the question, is this the right choice for me at the right time? This is about fit, about timing, and about purpose. And that is a really complicated threesome to try to figure out for each student. I've got a couple of slides here that I think can help you address specific students and specific student concerns. So I try to think about the more common concerns that we hear about here in the graduate college, reasons why students are hesitant to consider graduate education. So the most common that I thought of are, I can't afford it, I'm not ready, I don't think I'm good enough, and I don't know what I really want. So just out of curiosity here, maybe you can be brave and unmute or put an answer in the chat. Which of these four student concerns do you see the most often? Or is there one that I haven't thought of that you hear from your students?
I will volunteer.
Love that. Thank you. That sounds,
Yeah,
I think it's Campbell.
yes, yes it is. I have one that's not on this box. A big concern that I hear sometimes is they're not sure if they want to continue going to school at the moment because they've already committed so much time to their undergraduate career. So they're not sure. It feels like a monumental task and
Mhm.
step to take on another degree anyway. So that's kind of one of the barriers that I hear sometimes.
Yes, I absolutely hear I've already committed 4 years of my life to this. You want me to give more? Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. And I think I would address that in a couple of the different responses that I'll show you in here in a moment. I see affordability here for sure. Oh, I don't know which program I should choose. That's huge, especially in education, Julie. Good one. Yep, cost continues to show up. So I've come up with a couple of talking points under each one of these concerns. Again, this is not the end all be all. I'm sure there's things I haven't thought of, and I'm sure there are things that you are doing even better than me. And so I would love to hear what you have to say about how you have these conversations with students. I can't afford it. You all know that Missouri State continues to talk about and around our affordability as an appeal to students, and I hope that you're having those conversations and are able to answer those concerns. But I also would encourage you to discuss things that are available to graduate students that undergraduate students might not be familiar with. Probably the most important one is assistantships. Assistantships continue to be very lucrative here at Missouri State because we provide both a tuition fee waiver that covers base tuition and student service fees. And it covers a stipend for a set amount of hours per week. Yeah, I hear you, Kyler. That's an absolutely huge concern that I know our PhD planning folks are thinking about very strategically. What kind of job is out there for me on the other side of this thing? So I think assistantships are a great way to talk about that affordability concern. We do have scholarships, and we are actively working here in the Graduate College about increasing the scholarships that are available to our graduate students. And then I think thinking about the cost savings that students will be able to benefit from if they pursue that accelerated path. And then lastly, and this is perhaps not the most appropriate talking point for every student, you know your students, but that long-term earning potential, I think, is something worth bringing up with some students. For me, my decision to go to graduate school had a lot to do with whether or not I was willing to delay gratification. And I don't know that we talk to our students enough about that, about sort of thinking, what can I delay that paycheck a little bit longer to get my graduate degree. Yeah, Ross, I think some students think would be better to go somewhere else for a graduate program, diversify educational experiences. I think that is absolutely a valid concern that we hear often here in the graduate college. I have also heard that some faculty members encourage their students to leave Missouri State for a master's program, which sometimes breaks my heart because I do work in the graduate college. But I would encourage your students to think very critically about where they're headed for their graduate degree and if there is a strong fit there. I think one of the things that we do really well here at Missouri State is our terminal master's degrees. Our master's students get a really one-on-one attention that they're not likely to get at R1 institutions or PhD granting institutions. And so I think it will be interesting to watch how we navigate that transition over time. Yep, lack of financial support for programs is certainly an ongoing concern. And yes, I absolutely agree that advanced degrees provide more opportunities. So I love that y'all are thinking about these things, and I hope that you continue to give me some food for thought in the chat here. I'm not ready is a big one that I hear about all the time because applying to graduate school feels big and scary. It is different than applying to an undergraduate institution because at the undergraduate level, you apply to the institution. You are not applying to a program, and you are not agreeing to work with a select set of faculty. What I would encourage you to bring up here is talking about preparation timelines. For some students, the process of applying to a graduate program feels like it's going to take years. And it can in some cases, but in other cases, that's simply not the case. And so I would encourage you to talk to your students about what does their particular field look like in terms of admission requirements, and map out that preparation timeline. Is there going to be a GRE requirement? Do I need to get recommendation letters? And if you can break it down into bite-sized chunks, it feels a little more accomplishable for our students. And then if the I'm not ready piece is more about my academic preparedness, I think that's a valid concern for some of our students because students might finish out their undergraduate degree without having emphasized in research methods or writing a literature review or something along those lines. And so I think having honest conversations with students about what kind of skills they have yet to develop in their undergraduate program and seeing if they can fill those gaps in their remaining undergraduate years is a valuable approach to this. Am I good enough? I love this one because this was me. I referred to myself as a recovering perfectionist. And if I thought I was going to suck at something, I never did it, right? It was easier to win if you just stayed out of the things that you're not good at. And I was really concerned about no longer being the smart kid in the room when I went to graduate school and everyone was the smart kid in the room. And so I like having these conversations with students because I think there are multiple ways that we can approach them to encourage our students to have a growth mindset. This is, I think, something that's important. Admission requirements, admission standards do exist, and they are more rigorous at the graduate level than the undergraduate level. And so I would encourage you to talk about those standards objectively. It's simply an objective measure that programs use to determine fit. But what I always say to students is that what you produce does not equate to your worth as a human being, right? There is so much more that makes you valuable as a student, as a human, as a member of our culture, our society. And so having conversations around if you are not meeting those objective requirements, it doesn't mean you're a failure. And there are perhaps other ways that we can discuss how you could meet those requirements. And one of those ways is talking about on-ramps. And I don't know that we talk about this enough because our students often think either I get in or I don't. And one of the things I really like about our stackable pathways here at Missouri State is that if a student applies to a master's degree, for example, and is not accepted, there are other pathways out there for them. One of the most obvious is starting with a certificate. So a student can enroll in a graduate certificate and really work on building that graduate level GPA and using that certificate as an on-ramp to that full graduate program. I also think the on-ramps of undergraduate students taking graduate classes can be a really valuable tool. I often hear that undergraduate students are surprised at how well they're able to perform in those graduate courses when they take them in their junior and senior year. And then again, don't be afraid to highlight your students' strengths and where they do have opportunities for growth. Being honest with ourselves about our strengths and our areas of weakness can really help us address that. I don't know if I'm good enough question. I don't know what I want. This is a huge one. We get this all the time. And what I always tell students to do is go have conversations with people who have jobs you think you might want. Go have conversations with faculty members who teach and research in the area that you are interested in. Go have conversations with people that are in jobs that you think you would absolutely hate. You can learn something from all of those conversations. And I always tell students that getting advice from your network is a powerful, powerful tool. And I emphasize your network, not just one person. Because when a student comes to multiple folks on our campus for advice, they are going to cobble together their truth from multiple conversations. They're going to get a nugget of truth from Ross, a nugget of truth from a faculty member in their Tuesday, Thursday class, a nugget of truth from their aunt or uncle. And collectively, they start to put together a picture of a future that makes sense to them. And so I encourage students to have as many of those conversations as possible. And again, don't be afraid to frame graduate school as one of several pathways. It's not right for everybody, and we understand that here. We don't want to ever see advising conversations feel like a student is being pressured into something that's not right for them. All right, I have also outlined how we might talk to different types of students, and I agonized over this slide because there's so many different categories of students that I could talk about, and I also want to just right off the bat acknowledge that you could have one single student who fits into all three of these categories that I just put on the screen here. And so use my categorization carefully and with caution because I totally understand that putting students into boxes is sometimes a problem. But when I think about the students I'm having conversations with around graduate school, what I typically hear from are obviously the high achievers, those who graduate school might feel like a foregone conclusion, that they've just been thinking about this from high school and they feel ready to go. First gen students, this population has my heart. I am a first generation college graduate. And I think it's because of my first gen status that I really feel like my master's program saved my life. My master's program gave me my professional identity and my career path. And I am forever grateful for that and will always, always love this particular group of students. And then the undecided students, the students that just don't know what they might want to do after that graduate or that undergraduate degree is complete. Do these three categories make sense to you? Are there other categories that bubble up for you that you find yourself talking to quite a bit for graduate school? Again, feel free to unmute, put your comments in chat. I would love to hear from you all on this one about these three categories.
This is Kyler.
Hey, Kyler.
So this doesn't happen very often, but another category would be students who, frankly, don't have the academic. Well, I don't want to frame this diplomatically, but they may not have demonstrated, at least in their academic work, the quote unquote competency to pursue graduate school. So folks who I think are pursuing because they have no other option or they think they have another option, thinking of grad school as just, a stopgap.
Yeah.
So I would say folks who just probably would not be successful in grad school as indicated by their undergraduate performance.
Yeah, yeah. And that's another reason why I love working at Missouri State, because I think we have an established tradition of helping students figure out what's best for them and giving them the opportunity to prove themselves. And so I think that I think a couple of the comments I'm about to make will probably touch on that, and I see lots of other comments here in the chat. And Pippa, I'll try to come back to your broader question later on if we can get to it. So I just want to bring up a couple of talking points for each here, and I would love to hear your thoughts, what you might add to this. So keep the comments in the chat coming. So for your high achievers, for those students who feel like they're already thinking about graduate school, it's a foregone conclusion. This is where, especially with my graduate college hat on, I would strongly encourage you to bring up those accelerated options early, because these are the students who are likely to benefit most often from an accelerated pathway. And then probably the thing that we can tend to forget, especially if our primary job is academic advising, is encourage those research and faculty connections. So undergraduate students will occasionally get the opportunity to participate in research. And again, that's something that Missouri State is very good at. But if your undergraduate student who knows they want to go to grad school hasn't thought about those faculty partnerships, encourage them to do that early on. In terms of our first-gen students, I see a lot of comments in here about non-traditional students, student athletes. Absolutely. I think these are all fantastic groups of students to think about. And I would love your comments about where you might incorporate them into some of these talking points. And those specific skills thing, I think that's where graduate pathways can shine, right? That's looking to build specific skills. I think a graduate certificate is made for that. All right, first-gen students, my favorite group. So what we can do to help our first-gen students who are thinking about graduate school. First, help them demystify what grad school culture is, how graduate school is different from undergraduate education. And a couple of things I would draw your attention to here. There are often much more open-ended or ambiguous expectations at the graduate level than we see at the undergraduate level. We see that graduate education tends to be more self-directed and that there's a higher reading load. And I think being honest with our students about those changes is a useful tool early on. I think other aspects of grad school culture, the expectation that our graduate students are working with a faculty research advisor, how they can approach faculty in terms of a sort of collaborative relationship is really valuable. I remember when I started my master's program, I needed a signature from a faculty member in our program, and I was really intimidated by this faculty member. And it took me weeks to work up the courage to go into his office and ask for this signature. It was sort of a circular hallway, and his office was at the end of the hallway. I would get down to the end and lose my courage and just go back to my office at the other end of the building. And I was so terrified to talk to him because I did not understand grad school culture as a first-gen student. I had put these faculty members way up on pedestals and felt incredibly intimidated to talk to them. And once I did talk to them, I realized, wow, they're just people. They have likes and dislikes just like me, and they actually are interested in talking to me too. And so helping your students get over that, I think, is a useful tool. Terminology and timeline is also really weird at the graduate level. If you think about terms that our students might not understand, think about cohort, assistantship, GPD, defense, research agenda or research pipeline. These are all terms that we throw around very loosely in higher ed, and making sure that your students understand those terms can be really helpful. And then another place where Missouri State shines, we care about student success at this institution. And so emphasizing that the student support they experienced at the undergraduate level is going to be available to them at the graduate level too. This is where you can tell your students that Missouri State cares about good graduate advising too. And so I think highlighting that success piece is helpful here. For your undergraduate students, focus on exploration. I remember a comment in chat earlier, how on earth am I supposed to pick a program? Encourage your students to explore all of the programs that they have available to them, whether that's at Missouri State or elsewhere, And then we don't often think about graduate school and the Career Center, but they are a huge valuable resource in helping students determine if graduate school is the appropriate next step for them. We also here in the Graduate College partner with the Career Center, and we provide a platform that is called Beyond Graduate School, which is a platform that helps graduate students learn how to leverage their graduate degree into a position on the other end of that degree. And again, what I hope that you have heard from me multiple times already today is avoid pushing premature commitment. If a student doesn't feel like this is the right path for them, that's their choice to make. And again, your role is to come alongside as a strategic thinking partner rather than to make them feel like they are pushed. So some questions that you can ask of your students to help them try to determine whether this is the right approach for them. And here I remind you that your role is to help clarify, not pressure. And so this is about practical exploration, really. This is about helping your students think about how to clarify their thinking and their expectations. What do you see for yourself career-wise in 5 or 10 years? What do you want your day-to-day work to look like? This is key. Have you looked at job postings in that field? And what qualification skills or credentials show up repeatedly? Where do you meet those expectations and where are the gaps? I think this is where you can tie in that piece that a lot of you brought up in chat about non-traditional students. Non-traditional students are savvy when it comes to the job search environment, and directing them towards those qualifications or skills that they might not have cobbled together in their undergraduate education, helping them think about where graduate ed can help them fill the gap. And then I think this is a really powerful question to ask. What excites you about continuing your education and what gives you pause? I often say this when I talk to master's students who are thinking about going on for a PhD, that unless they feel very excited about it, I think they should second or third guess their choices, because graduate education is indeed hard. It is a challenge, especially for some students more so than others. And what carries students through those challenging days, those hard times, is their enthusiasm about what they're studying and why they're studying it. And so I think asking these questions can help students clarify their thinking around what kind of graduate pathway they're looking at. All right, I'm going to sort of step away from the sort of advisor-related conversations, and I do want to, again, draw your attention to our accelerated programs here at Missouri State. I assume many of you on the call are familiar with them, but in case you are not, wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you about these accelerated programs. I think that they are an underutilized tool. We have a lot of accelerated graduate programs here on campus that have relatively low enrollment. And I don't necessarily think that they are right for every student, but if they're right for your student, they can be a really valuable tool. So accelerated pathways, I want to tell you what they are and what they are not. They are a structured pathway allowing our undergraduate students to start taking graduate coursework early. They are essentially a saved spot in a graduate program. This is unique to Missouri State because accelerated programs operate a little bit differently at each institution. But here at Missouri State, you apply to and you are accepted into an accelerated program while you're an undergraduate student. So that acceptance essentially carries over until you've finished your undergraduate degree. At other institutions, the accelerated pathway is simply a pathway to take those classes. It's not necessarily a secured spot in a grad program. So I think that's a valuable piece to focus on with your students. Accelerated programs are a way to shorten their students' total time to their graduate degree. That's something that is lucrative to a lot of students thinking about being able to get both that undergrad and graduate degree in 5 years. And I do think this is important to acknowledge. Our accelerated programs are designed for high-performing undergraduates because they are taking graduate courses while still an undergraduate student. And so that academic preparation, skill, and ability does need to be there. I also have to tell you what they are not. Accelerated students are not a shortcut around academic standards. In fact, some of our accelerated programs actually have stricter admission requirements than their standalone master's counterparts. And they are not right for every student. When I was a graduate program director in our communication MA program, I often found myself talking to students about, especially those high achieving students who knew they wanted a master's degree and often even knew they wanted to go on for a PhD. What I would encourage them to think through is what you're giving up by doing that accelerated path. And one of the things you're giving up is a traditional cohort experience. Again, that 2-year experience in a master's program, especially if the master's program is cohort based, it can be really, really clarifying and powerful in ways beyond what you would imagine happening inside the classroom. And so what they're giving up to do the accelerated path is something to take note of. I do like to just show this visual because I think it's helpful to sort of wrap your head around what an accelerated pathway does for students. So this is a traditional path. In most cases, an undergraduate student can complete their degree with 120 hours, and then they start a master's degree, which at Missouri State is typically around 33 hours. There are some that are more, some that are less. And so you're looking at 4 years and 2 years to complete both of these degrees. That's a traditional path. We all know that path. It's what most of our students choose to do. But the accelerated path basically allows students to take 12 hours of mixed credit. Now, that number of hours will vary by program. And that is coursework that is at the graduate level that applies to both degrees. And so essentially, you're taking 12 hours out of the undergraduate degree and saying you don't have to take these 12 hours. And then you are starting 12 hours of your master's degree early, and those degrees will apply back to the undergraduate degree. So mixed credit, meaning that the same class applies to both levels. Now, who is a good candidate for accelerated pathways? Obviously, there are instances where we don't have a graduate program in a specific field. So if you are talking to a student who wants to go to law school or med school, for example, we don't have those programs here at Missouri State. And so that's probably not a good solution for that particular student. So if they plan to stay at Missouri State, thinking through what options we have for them. Again, that strong academic background, clear goals, strong time management skills, readiness for advanced study. I think this is an important one. We have to acknowledge that increased rigor, the increased reading load. I also like to see students who are adaptive, have strong communication skills, and are just generally a little bit more mature than their counterparts. So these are the sort of characteristics that stand out in terms of who makes a good candidate for an accelerated program. But I have to add this, Carissa's caveat. These are very, very subjective characteristics, and students will prove you wrong over and over again, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I will never forget talking to an undergraduate student when I was a graduate program director. He told me that he was interested in our accelerated pathway. And my internal thought, I didn't say it out loud, so don't worry. My internal thought was, you're just a frat boy. What are you doing here? You can't succeed at the graduate level. Happy to say he proved me wrong time and time again, and was one of our most successful graduate students at our program, and researched some really powerful things. And so please keep that in mind. Don't lump students into these subjective characteristics in a way that might harm them. I think one of the things that could be an advising cue for you, look at your rising juniors who are already ahead in their coursework. These are students who are probably looking at their degree audit daily. They know exactly what is left for them, and they've probably got some room to play around with some electives and things like that. So students who are ahead in their coursework might be ideal candidates. Benefits of accelerated programs. A lot of these are obvious, but I want to draw your attention to them so that you can talk to your students about them. We know that accelerated programs will save time. Typically, you can get your master's degree in one additional year, but that may require some summer courses. It does save money. It saves approximately $3,500 the last time I did the calculation, or it saves the cost of those replaced undergraduate courses that I showed you just a few slides ago. Accelerated programs do strengthen our students' competitiveness. If they can put on a resume that they were admitted to an accelerated graduate program before they completed their undergraduate degree, that helps them to stand out in a competitive pool. And it does secure their slot in that graduate program and helps ease their transition into graduate education. This is a big one for me. Students who know they want to go on for a graduate degree, Applying to an accelerated program helps them maintain that academic momentum. Momentum matters. We know this. The easiest way to finish something is to never stop. And so if you know for sure that you want a graduate degree, talking to that particular student about their opportunities there is, I think, a valuable tool. Students in accelerated programs also finish their graduate degree at a higher rate and in less time. I think this is a powerful visual here. Our graduate completion rates are significantly higher for our students who start in an accelerated pathway. They're also admitted to their graduate programs at a higher rate as well. Our traditional acceptance rate is about 79% across all graduate programs, and that's 89% for accelerated. So it's because we are recruiting these highly qualified students at the undergraduate level. Some tips for you as you are thinking about how to advise students who are in these kinds of programs. When to raise the option. Again, I think that thinking about those rising juniors sophomore year, or anytime that they're bringing up their long-term plans. If they're thinking beyond just the next semester, that's probably a good cue to you that they're ready to think about the what's next question, so to speak. And here's how you can help them plan. And this is, I think, an important piece of this that I would love to see us do collectively a better job at across our campus. I think our accelerated students require the assistance of both undergraduate advisors and graduate advisors. And if we can be more honest about that, our students are going to have a better experience. So you can help your undergraduate students who are thinking about or accepted into accelerated programs by mapping their remaining undergraduate requirements and identifying where they could use those mixed credit graduate hours in their undergraduate degree program. Identifying overlap or sequencing issues in their undergraduate courses that might be an issue as they get to registration. And then encouraging early contact with their graduate program. So for those who are not as familiar with graduate college acronyms, GPD, Graduate Program Director, is the primary contact for every graduate program we have here on campus. And this is really important for those of you who are primarily undergraduate advisors. If you have an undergraduate student who has been accepted into a accelerated graduate program, we need you working together with that graduate program director to identify those mixed credit outcomes. Where are you going to be applying those credits so that everyone can stay on the same page and get that student through to completion?
Carissa, hi,
Yeah.
Beth Perrine.
Hey.
Has there been talk about identifying within the degree audit when, I'm just going to make numbers up. Let's say I'm in the accelerated business program, and I'm just making things up, business 750, and it's going to apply to business 350 in their undergraduate program. When I look at a degree audit, it's not identified at all. That it just looks to me like they still need business 350. Now I'm different. I'm a counselor, not an advisor, and I'm just trying to guide them and make sure. So every last semester, I'm making sure they have their degree audit is set and they're ready to graduate. And then it looks to me like they still need 2 classes. So I have the same conversation over and over because the degree audit isn't showing that there's a possibility that they might have mixed credit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So it makes perfect sense to me. And I think I have a comment about this in a later slide. And it's my understanding, but I'm glad that you brought it up because I'll make a note to follow up on this. It's my understanding that banner, it's a sort of banner issue that doesn't allow the course to populate until the course ends. So the Office of the Registrar and the Graduate College work together to populate those graduate level courses at the end of the term and put them back into the degree audit.
Carissa,
Yeah.
that's backwards. The graduate course shows up all semester, and then at the end of the semester, once the course is graded, the Office of the Registrar goes in and puts the undergraduate equivalent.
Well, the graduate course would show on their graduate degree audit, but not their undergraduate degree audit.
Well, or on their transcript, though, it shows up graduate the whole semester until the end.
Yeah, yes. So if you're looking at their transcript and their graduate degree audit, yes. But if you are looking only at their undergraduate degree audit, you will not see that until the course is complete. And so I think that's I'm going to follow up with folks in the registrar's office, see if we can find a workaround. But Beth, to your point, that's a key thing that undergraduate advisors need to know, and be ready to talk to their advisees about is, are you taking any courses for mixed credit? And yeah, that's, I think, like I said, I think I have it on a future slide here, but it's something to keep in mind. All right. The other thing I want to remind you of is that accelerated graduate programs are not the only way that your undergraduate students can take graduate credit. We have a policy here, OP 304-51, that allows undergraduate students to take graduate credit in 3 different pathways. And so again, you have to meet eligibility requirements, and those limitations that are listed there. The student must have the GPA and hour requirement, have the required approvals, and understand those credit limitations. I'll show you a little bit more detail in the next slide here. Not all programs will allow mixed credit, and so it's the job of both the graduate program director and the undergraduate advisor to have those conversations with the student. And then this is key to know: if a student is accepted into an accelerated master's program, there's an assumption that those credits, those graduate credits, will apply to that accelerated master's program. If they are not accepted into a master's program, then students should not assume that those graduate credits will automatically apply to any graduate program they want to enroll in. And so having those conversations on the front end is helpful here. And again, planning needs to be intentional and strategic. So I'm going to just show you a visual of what those 3 pathways look like. So mixed credit accelerated is what we've already talked about. This is how students who are already admitted into that accelerated program register for those graduate level classes. The number of credit hours allowed is program specific. It varies across graduate programs, but there can be no more than 40% of the graduate degree taken while you are still an undergraduate student. Mixed credit accelerated requires approval of the graduate program director, the undergraduate academic unit leader, and our office. So those forms are filtered through all 3 of those levels. The next pathway is a student does not have to be accepted into an accelerated master's program. They can choose to take what we call general mixed credit. These students need at least 90 credit hours and have a GPA of 3.0. And students are allowed to take up to 6 credit hours of general mixed credit. Students who choose to do this this requires the approval of the graduate program director, where they are taking the graduate credits and the undergraduate AUL. You'll see that we don't require the graduate college approval on these students because these students are not accepted into a graduate program yet. So mixed credit general could be a really valuable pathway for your undergraduate students who are interested in exploring graduate courses, but they're not convinced yet that it's the right path for them. They get to try that graduate class, see what it feels like to be at that graduate level of study, and have that class count back toward their undergraduate degree. And they're basically banking that graduate credit if they decide to pursue a graduate degree later on. So again, the accelerated, they've already been admitted to the program. The general, they are not admitted to the program, but still get to take those graduate level courses that are applied to both degrees. And then lastly, senior permission. This is simply getting permission for an undergraduate student to take a graduate level class, but that graduate level class will not be counted back toward the undergraduate degree. So the mixed credit is applied to both. Senior permission is not applied to the undergraduate degree. We allow up to 12 credit hours of senior permission to be taken. This is really key here. Senior permission hours are not eligible for financial aid. And then we, of course, require the approval of the academic unit leader over that graduate classes for these courses. I hope that you are asking, why would a student ever do senior permission? Then it seems like mixed credit is the best option. I agree. Send your students through these options in this order. The graduate college would much prefer to see all of our students applying to accelerated graduate programs. If that's not right for them, the mixed credit general is the next best option for exploring graduate classes. Senior permission, in most cases, and of course there's exceptions that prove every rule, but in most cases, senior permission courses should be the last resort because they are not applied back to the undergraduate degree and they are not financial aid eligible. So students are paying for this out of pocket. But for your highly motivated students who want to get as many graduate hours as they can while still an undergraduate student, this could be a good tool for them. I do think it's important to note that our accelerated students can find themselves in no man's land at our institution because they are not fully an undergraduate student and they're not fully a graduate student. So I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that graduate program directors are listed as support team members in Atlas. So I just took a screenshot here to show you how, in this particular example, the undergraduate advisor is listed first, and the accelerated graduate advisor is listed as a support team member. This allows the accelerated student to still show up on the accelerated graduate advisor's advisee list while they are still an undergraduate student, so that they don't sort of get lost in that shuffle. Again, remember that undergraduate and graduate advisors have to work together on that mixed credit piece, and that graduate level work will not show up in the undergraduate degree audit until the end of the term. And so having those purposeful conversations, making sure students understand that so that they're not panicked when they don't see it on their degree audit, all of that can be really helpful there. Our accelerated students are, again, among our most high achieving academic performing students, but don't take that as permission to not have to worry about them. Because they are not fully undergraduate or fully graduate students, they may require additional support. And if you can familiarize yourself with the policies around this, you'll be better able to provide that support for your students. Okay. Back to the broader conversation that we were having. I just want to leave you with a few things that I hope are useful tips to you. So avoiding pitfalls that we see in advising conversations and knowing when to refer your students to somebody else. So when can you clarify when should your job be to refer? Any advisor, anybody on this call, I believe can and should be able to clarify for their students general pathways into graduate level study, timeline considerations, when they should start thinking about graduate level study, policy basics, and having an honest, objective conversation about a student's academic readiness. And for those of you who are advising in certain departments or in certain programs, I would encourage you to look into the specific graduate programs that are in your area so that you are as familiar with them as possible regarding admission requirements, timelines, things like that. But beyond that, we here in the Graduate College don't see it as your job to know literally everything about graduate education at Missouri State. That's why we are here, and we hope that you will refer students to us. So when a student has program-specific admission questions or program requirement questions, the best point of contact for them is the graduate program director, the GPD that lives in that program. If they have general admission questions, our graduate admissions team here in our office is the best place. And then you can always send students to us about assistantship funding, complex policy interpretation. And then if they have no idea what graduate program to choose, we would love to talk with them about that as well. What I hope that your takeaway here is from this slide is that we don't expect you to know it all. And the Graduate College is a resource that you can always send students to, and we'll be happy to help. Avoiding misinformation. I had a mentor that told me once that true confidence is knowing when you need help. And I'm going to take that and tweak it a little bit and say true confidence is knowing when to refer a student. So I would encourage you here to be very cautious with absolute statements. Statements like, you can definitely count that credit towards this graduate program, or of course you're going to get in, you're a shoo-in for graduate school, or graduate school is always worth it. These absolute statements are not always helpful to students and can be wrong. And so I would encourage you instead to lead with something like, I want to make sure you get accurate information. Let's connect you with so-and-so. And if you don't know who that should be, then your fill-in answer is the Graduate College. We consider ourselves a service unit. We are here to help both you and the student. So please never be afraid to refer students to us. Lastly, I like to sort of leave you with a couple of takeaways. I'm going to call this my 3-2-1 takeaways. So first, 3 reasons for you to talk to your students about graduate school early. Students make better academic decisions when they're thinking about graduate school as early as possible. Preparing as early as possible gives your students the competitive advantage they might need to get into graduate school. And early planning reduces stress, which we're all about, I hope we're all about these days, and reduces cost on the students, especially if they're looking at that accelerated path. 2 pathways that save time and money. Accelerated graduate programs, absolutely, and the undergraduate students taking graduate credit. Please remember that there are multiple ways for an undergraduate student to explore graduate education. It doesn't have to be the accelerated graduate program. And then, of course, one place that you can always send students, if you are not sure what to say to them, send them to us here in the graduate college. Now, I have to bring this full circle and leave you with my final thought here. Graduate school conversations are not about pushing your students as hard as you possibly can. They're about helping your students think strategically, plan intentionally, and see possibilities clearly. You can be the inspiration that a student needs to change their life through a master's degree, much like Dr. Sue Park was for me. And I want to remind you that you all on this call are critical partners in our work and in helping students think strategically. So if, in case nobody has said it to you today, please let me be the one to say it. Thank you so, so much for what you do, for how you care about your students, and for being here today and thinking about graduate school. I have 5 minutes left. I crushed it on timing this time, Ross, so I'm happy to take questions, hear comments, anything that you all want to talk about. But if not, I will turn it back over to Ross. Okay, I stopped sharing my screen and now my face is really big and I didn't like that. Thanks for the comments in chat. I'm happy to hang out and answer any other questions or hear what you're thinking about.
Okay, well, Carissa, thank you for presenting this information. Very, very beneficial. And I just want to echo what you said earlier. The partnership between the Graduate College and the Academic Advising and Transfer Center has really been meaningful for all of us on campus. So thank you for that continued partnership between our two areas.
Thanks, Ross. I appreciate you all so much.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, so please know if something does come up. I email Carissa frequently, so I know that she will definitely get back with you. That concludes our academic advisor forum today. Everyone have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you next Wednesday at the seated advisor forum. Bye.